What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It's Friday, June 26th. Happy birthday to me. We're going to wrap up our All 32 series. This is technically the penultimate episode because John Breach is going to talk to Vic Tafur about the Arizona Cardinals later this afternoon, but the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's get it right. Clearly, I didn't stay up doing anything on the night before my birthday to talk about the Arizona Cardinals right now with me, good friend of the program, somebody I've known for a long time, actually, Will Leitch at William F. Leitch on Twitter, purveyor of many words in many places. Mr. Leitch, how you doing?
Very well. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I didn't plan on. And by the way, I don't know if listeners will say Brinson sounds better. CBS sent me, not for my birthday, but it just happened to arrive on the eve of my birthday, and I put it together while slamming some adult beverages and blasting Widespread Panic, old YouTubes, because that's what I do in the coronavirus. It's a nice new Roadcaster. Thank you, Debo, for making it happen. I appreciate you getting me a birthday present, Debo. You're the best.
You're welcome. Happy birthday, Will.
Thank you. That was just an excuse for you to tell me happy birthday on the podcast. All right. So, by the way, I should point out that I didn't mention this before. Will and I had a lengthy conversation about various things before, but way back in the day, because I noticed that people were talking about there's like the quote tweet thing going on, Leach, where it's like, who helped you out? You know, who's very nice about it. We used to run this site, me and a couple friends ran a site called Brinson.com, which is ridiculous that we did this back in the day. And you were kind enough to, when you were at the peak of your powers at a certain website, kind enough to take time out to do a 10 desert island album list, which is one of the things that we did. I wish I did it now. And I don't remember what they were, but I wanted to acknowledge and say that I did appreciate that way back in the day.
I'm sure like half of them were Nirvana.
There was definitely a Nirvana.
I'm sure. Like, yeah, I've expanded my musical horizons a little bit. I'll have, you mentioned Widespread Panic. Domingo Ortiz lives here in Athens. I have had drinks with Domingo Ortiz, who lives, the percussionist for Widespread Panic. Sonny, of course.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, yeah, he's a very awesome dude.
We may have to get I should have gotten the sound clip of this, but we were talking about the current Athens mayor. The old Athens mayor, if you listen to Light Fuse or Panic in the Streets, the DVD, she's like the largest album release party in music history. Please don't wreck my town.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the Arizona Cardinals.
I live in Athens, by the way. That's why, for listeners that don't know, I live in Athens, Georgia. That's why. That's why I'm here to talk about the Arizona Cardinals.
But you are, I think, still the preeminent Cardinals fan. I mean, there's not. So we were talking about this on. We talked about this for Monday's show, which will come out obviously Monday, and we pre-recorded it ahead of the weekend. But we were ranking like if somebody who lived in England and was like becoming an NFL fan, we're saying the Cardinals are a pretty good team to latch onto because you have Kyler Murray and you have this young nucleus of players, and there's sort of an exciting future, but there's no history of great success, so you can jump on without people calling you a bandwagoner. And like Kyler Murray's in the top 10 of guys I'm probably drafting if I'm starting a franchise right now. Is that crazy?
I don't think so. And like another thing about being a fan of the Arizona Cardinals too is not only they have no history, like no one, like I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan because I grew up in the Midwest when they were in St. Louis and stuck with them when they left because I couldn't get mad at them for leaving because I don't live in St. Louis anymore either. So, but it's weird because that you get no points for that. Most people just think you're an idiot. Like there's no reason to stick with that team so long. So you can just hop in with me. I think you're probably the most famous Arizona Cardinal fan. It's probably John Hamm. I would say John or Blake Shelton. Blake Shelton or John Hamm are probably.
That's pretty big. I guess because Hamm is a
fellow St. Louis guy, right? Fellow St. Louis guy. In fact,
he was a fantasy football league with like Dave Damashek and like cousin Sal and Simmons. It's very weird how Hamm just sort of lurks in the.
He does. He was a Deadspin commenter lurker way back in the day. Really? That was actually how I met him. He emailed me right after he was apparently a Deadspin commenter with a username that had Bidwell in it. actually, which I discovered years
So are you
later.
and Ham on like texting terms? I mean,
We
like,
are because we're Cardinal fans, because we're big St. Louis
Right,
Cardinals
sure,
fans. So we certainly the late Foley's bar in New York, that was a big sad thing that just closed. That was the Cardinals bar in New York State. So he and Andy Cohen, a fellow Cardinals fan, they were often always there. And so I've gotten to know him a little bit strictly in Cardinals.
you're like Andy Cohen of Bravo?
Yeah, he's a huge,
also
huge
a
Cardinals
fan?
Of course.
Wow.
You ever seen the backdrop of his set? It's all St. Louis Arch and Cardinal stuff.
I must confess, I have not watched much Andy Cohen show, but
you should.
I probably should.
It's just like America, people screaming at each other.
Do you find that like you're far more like that you enjoy somebody's like work or programs more if they like the same team that you do?
Yes, that's undeniably true.
Yeah, like nothing John Hamm can do is bad, because and not much that he does is bad, but like nothing he can do is bad. You're going to enjoy it a little bit more than most people.
Yeah, Blake Shelton is not my style of music to any stretch of the imagination, but it probably can't be that bad. He's there as a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So,
okay, sorry. Yes, Kyler Murray.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, Kyler Murray is. I don't know where I think he's a sneaky MVP candidate this year. I think that's kind of crazy, but. I mean, what did you take away from his rookie year? Was it enough where you're like, okay? Because I mean, like it feels like it erased the Rosen mistake entirely.
Yeah, and it's also kind of remarkable too. I mean, we remember it wasn't that long ago where we thought, wow, it's going to take a while for this rookie quarterback to figure out things. Even if he holds the job from the beginning, I know that they're starting more from the beginning of their careers now, but still, there's always this transition period. The thing about Murray, and of course, a lot of this is because Kingsbury clearly wanted him and thought he was the perfect guy to run a system. But Murray, from the get-go, they're like, "This is your team. Do your thing, man." And really, he was very comfortable kind of from the beginning. He had a stretch, I think 5-6 games where he didn't throw an interception. And from the beginning, the whole offense, they all just felt comfortable immediately with him running. And now he made mistakes. He's a rookie quarterback. There were things that he didn't do as well. And it's funny, one of the things we can talk about Kingsbury, but one of the things I think was kind of impressive about him was for this idea, like it's going to be 5 wide, he's going to throw the ball like crazy. For a large stretch of the season, this was a very run-heavy team, and it was smartly. And I don't know if that's what Kingsbury necessarily likes to do, but I think it speaks to how kind of adaptive he is. And if anything, Murray was almost too hesitant to take off and run sometimes. I think that's what you'll see the improvement in. And again, obviously he has a better a star wide receiver now. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited. And from the get-go, as soon as he got there, the team just loved him and followed him resolutely from really the first snap. Yeah,
the thing with Kingsbury is like they ranked 18th in passing attempts and 19th in rushing attempts. Like it was a very balanced. I mean, it wasn't as explosive as I think people thought it would be, and it wasn't as fast paced either. It almost felt like Kingsbury knew if he tried to come in and just do what he did at Texas Tech that it wasn't going to work, and I think he's probably right. But I mean, the air raid is, the construct is that it's not like you want to be balanced. I think he purposely wanted to be more balanced than he would have been at Texas Tech or than you are at college football, because it's a huge difference. Like the hashes are wider, you have more room to spread out, and you're going up against, more often than not, like a guy who's not going to end up in the NFL. You can find exploitable matchups at the college level much easier than you can at the NFL level. And I think that's sort of part of the problem and why you want to try and create this run game that the passing game then feeds off of. And it felt like maybe even they sort of, I think Kingsbury and Kyler both ramped up, and I don't know if that getting David Johnson out and getting Kenyon Drake in necessarily flipped the switch almost as much as like it took them a little while to get acclimated. Like I thought Kingsbury I was really worried about him early in the season. Like he was kicking every time in the red zone. He seemed scared and hesitant. It was like, this is not like when I see Kliff Kingsbury, I'm thinking like swashbuckling, Ray-Ban wearing, loafer kicking, Batzer dude who's going to go nuts out there on the field. And he was very conservative almost.
One thing that Kingsbury has talked about, one of the biggest mistakes he made last year, remember during the preseason when their offense was nothing? And his whole thing was like, we're not showing our cards. We're going to blow you away when we get out there. And he now says he regrets that. Like he should have used the preseason to try some things out and to actually show a little bit. He kept I think his actual quote was like, I've really just kind of outsmarted myself. And so we kind of got overwhelmed early because they didn't have enough reps. And really that was what you saw, both Murray and Kingsbury getting more reps in the NFL. That was when you saw them start to get better. And then, frankly, it's something he thinks that they should have done more in preseason. To me, this is what I like most about Kingsbury. I think he is an innovator, and I think he's a smart guy for this stuff. But the thing I'm most impressed by, he's not a zealot. Like he adapted as the season went on. He did not be like, oh, this isn't working. Well, you know what? Doggone it, I'm going to make it work. Like
I coached at Texas Tech.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he was really
coach at Texas Tech. Damn it. We're running this system.
And for the record, for a guy that was brought in because of his like he's got this system and it's going to work. And we have to hire him to be the head coach because someone will make him an offensive coordinator. We can't lose that kind of genius on this team. There's a humility to him that I frankly was not expecting. And as you well know, is not something you see that often in the NFL among coaches. And I think it works. I think it works for him to not just have that kind of understanding of, okay, this isn't working. Let's try. The idea that he would run the ball so much. I do think Drake made a big difference. Johnson was like,
he's washed, right?
Yeah, it was not a good, and I love David Johnson. Like I thought, like he is a very likable guy and a good person. I felt it was a good fit. But he's just not been the same since that injury, and it doesn't look like he's ever going to come back. Drake is good, but I think you've noticed that they've been hesitant to give Drake this big long offer. I think they have a certain type of running back that they need. Drake is that guy, but in a couple of years it'll be somebody else, and so therefore I don't think they really feel like they have to have Drake around forever. But he's perfect for what they're doing now, and more important, was perfect for what they needed at that time, which is to like, okay, let Murray figure this out. And then by the end of the year, the offense was really starting to kind of click the way it was supposed to. And to me, watching that Cleveland game late in the year was a blast. Like that was an absolute blast to watch. And that was their first one. They'd lost like 6 in a row, and they really started to really get it together. You can see how it would work. And again, that's before Hopkins gets there. So there's a lot of fun things but it's not just, oh, Kingsbury's system, he's going to plug them in and here they go. He's more evolving than that, and I think that's going to help him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the stories you would hear is that the reason, and the Cardinals and whoever, and I'm not trying to pin it on anybody in particular. Mark Dalton, I think, does a really good job as Cardinals head of the Cardinals PR, and I think they're an excellent PR team. But whoever wrote the press release for Kingsbury made a mistake because they included like friend of Sean McVay. It's like, I know that's the trendy thing, but it's a little transparent. And Kingsbury doesn't look like somebody who would be humble. Like he just doesn't look like why would that guy be humble? And yet I think you're right.
He doesn't have the house of someone that's humble. As
or
we found out,
or the cheekbones of somebody, or like the jawline of somebody who's humble. Like he doesn't appear, but he is. Like I think Sean McVay is sort of the same way, ironically, is that you look at me like, oh, that guy is like a turbo bro football guy, but there is like a lot of humility to them and they understand. But I think Steve Keim sort of became tight with Kingsbury while scouting, and that's how they sort of like he down to earth. At the heart of him, he is a football guy.
They're nerds. They're nerds. Like they're both football nerds. And I think that's been, and listen, Keim, I mean, boy, he had like a pretty rough stretch there.
People were calling for his job. Left.
Yeah, and remember he'd had some off-field issues as well. So like Keim was in a lot of trouble, and to the point where I was worried that Kingsbury was just a desperation.
For sure, or like it's like if this doesn't work out in year one, and like Kyler's not good, it's like the whole thing's getting blown up.
I mean, yeah. So but to see that the two of them actually do seem to work together really well is I feel like it's maybe kind of luck that happened, because I don't think they could have possibly known that it was going to work so well, but it really does. By the way, this is the point that I remind you. I'm sure you guys have mentioned this, but Keim's kid, you know what Steve Keim's 3 children's names are?
All named after Kurt,
Carson, Brady, and Warner.
Yeah, yes,
Carson,
right.
Brady, and Warner.
All named after quarterbacks.
That's like George. That's like George Foreman naming all of his kids George.
It is. It's pretty great. Okay, so I don't want to get too caught up in rehashing 2019 because it is sort of a look ahead. Like the craziest moment by far this offseason. I don't know if you heard we were doing a podcast during free agency, and we happened to be recording when the David Johnson trade was announced, and we lost our collective bleep in the middle of it. And then we found it was insane because it was like David Johnson's trade, like the Cardinals traded David Johnson. That's a great deal. It's like, what did they get in return? Oh, all right, like they gave up it's like I can't remember what it's like. Oh, the Texans are going to pay a salary. It's like, wow, great deal for the Cardinals. It was like, but wait, there's more. They also got DeAndre Hopkins for a second round pick. It was like, what? Like that was by far the non-corona related craziest moment of the offseason.
Oh, it was great. And it was also exactly that. It was around the time where like that and Brady were like the stimulus packages for the sports talk radio in the middle of this time. They're like, oh my God, thank you. We needed this so bad. Yeah, I have to say, as someone that's watched the Arizona Cardinals since they were the St. Louis Cardinals and the Big Red and Neil Lomax and Jim Hart, usually the Cardinals are on the other side of trades like this. Right. So it was definitely and it's funny. It's hard to feel like, listen, Keim has made some great decisions and Keim has made some bad decisions. I can't really go like, hey, way to go, Keim, on this. Like if there's an apple from a tree, you take it because it's right there. And so, yeah, it was definitely bewildering. And I don't know what the Texans, I know that they had issues with Hopkins. And listen, it's not like the Cardinals have completely figured out the contract situations that soured so much of Hopkins with the Texans anyway. But who cares? We'll figure that out later.
It's almost like it's one of those things where it's so obvious who won the trade that you're like, is there some like 4D chess thing that Bill O'Brien's playing here that I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like you're trying to look like where is the catch? Is there there has to be some catch, right?
Hopkins is a little older. Like, it's not like he's a speed guy anyway. Like this is, and so maybe I can understand why Hopkins and the Texans had come to a point where it was time to go. I think everybody understands that. But if this was all you could get, I just don't believe that could possibly be true. And so to me, that's the issue. The issue is not so much that like, why would they give away one of the top 5 players in football for nothing? Well, he's not one of the top 5 players in football, but he's a great wide receiver, and it feels like you should be able to get something. And he's also perfect for what the Cardinals need. And listen, they they have guys like Andy Isabella, like they have the burners, like they've not really been able to they got the speeder, and they've not really been able to unlock those just yet. Hopkins feels to me like someone that can unlock those guys. And listen, it's Larry Fitzgerald is great. He's good for like there were a couple of times last year where they had to just throw him the slant pass to keep the streak going. Just get the pass and let him fall down. Like that's fine. But like there were other times where he would have a moment where you're like, oh, right, that's Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah. And to me, those moments aren't as much fun when your team is 5-10-1, right, but they can be very fun if you're in a playoff chase. And I think people will feed off. So I think I think he's generally gotten better about accepting where he is in the pecking order. I think Hopkins will help that. I think it just makes everything easier for everyone.
I mean, we were talking about before the podcast about how long it's been since certain things happened. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald was drafted in 2004. So were you writing at Black Table?
Deadspin did not exist when Larry Fitzgerald was drafted, which is really wild, right? Yeah.
I don't even know what I was doing there for.
That's before like Roethlisberger was drafted. Wasn't Roethlisberger 05, 06? Yeah. Yeah,
no, because 04 is Rivers, Roethlisberger,
right.
Eli, and obviously AP. Larry Fitzgerald. I'm talking AP. AP is 07. By the way, the Cardinals actually wish they drafted. Keim wanted to draft Adrian Peterson over Levi Brown. He got overruled by Rod Graves. Fun story. But the thing with Fitz and with Hopkins is like we were talking about how they didn't have to go they didn't go 5 wide the way maybe we thought they would. I think now that you add Hopkins in, it makes Fitz is able to do what Fitz does best, which is be an older possession guy who can, I don't want to call him a tight end, but like a move tight end type where he's like, he's just not going to like he's not going to put up a monster game every week in and week out. He's just older. He drafted in 04. But then like all those guys, Isabella, Kirk, Hopkins, Fitzgerald, even Akeem Butler to a degree. He's coming, he's a younger guy. Keyshawn Johnson, who they like. All those guys seem to really fit well together in terms of plopping a bunch of receivers out there and making life difficult. The offensive line looks like it's improved. I think it would be really, really disappointing if this offense didn't take a big step forward.
I mean, it's the line, right? The line is the issue. They had a lot of injuries last year. They obviously addressed in the draft, but like that's the question is if the line, they don't even need this to be an incredible line. They just need it to be better. And it's not like they didn't have a great line last year, but Murray didn't, he didn't seem like he still seemed pretty confident, right? He didn't like we've all seen rookie quarterbacks get drilled.
And Rosen was under siege.
Exactly. And I'm not sure he's ever recovered, to be entirely honest.
I mean, it was almost traumatic. I mean,
yeah. And Murray and the offensive line was a little bit better last year than it was with Rosen, but not dramatically so. And I think that just listen, I feel bad for Rosen. I will always feel like a little bad for kind of the situation that he was in Arizona, and I think it will end up affecting. I think he would have been a different quarterback if they would have worked out differently for a different team and in a different situation. But the difference is just dramatic. And Murray, it's very exciting for me. Like that Arizona Cardinals team that went to the Super Bowl was just this lightning bolt out of nowhere, right? Remember, they'd gotten drilled by on Thanksgiving by the Eagles and had gotten drilled by the Patriots, and it was like, this is the worst playoff team to ever even make it. And then they went on this run to the Super Bowl, and it was so fun. And for the record, I felt when they made that Super Bowl run, I felt like this is actually the team that I thought they would be all year. It wasn't like the 2006 baseball Cardinals were like, wow, Jeff Weaver is like Bob Gibson all of a sudden. I don't know how that happened, but like, whereas with football, like that, you could see that team had the ability to be that. They just hadn't got it, and then they got hot at the right time. But they've never had, like, obviously they've had great players, Fitz obviously first among them, but they've never had that. Wow, I think that we have like a whole paradigm changing quarterback.
Right.
They've just never had it.
Palmer and Warner were on their second acts.
Yeah, and they were both great. They were both great, but they're going to fit in the system here. We're going to get what we can out of them. But now, like, you look at Murray, like the Cardinals have just never had, like, Plummer is probably the closest that you could come to a guy that was like not only electrifying, but really feels like, wow, I think this guy's going to be the quarterback for the next 15 years on this team. And like that is, they've never had that since Jim Hart. that they've had a guy like that. So it's very exciting. It is very exciting. And to have someone who, listen, one of the things that Murray has, I think has been one thing that's kind of interesting in this offseason. He's certainly found his voice on social matters as well. He's been very, very eloquent and very smart talking about that. And I think he's accepted that as a thing that, frankly, in a state where sometimes it's really impressive. And it just feels like he's a guy that people are going to rally around, and because he's also not a particularly polarizing player. Like, I'm sure there will be a backlash at some point.
He's very quiet though.
Yeah,
like he's just sort of like, he's not. He has plenty of, like, I hate the word, but he has plenty of on-field swagger, but he doesn't have that Baker Mayfield brashness to him.
For a guy who it feels like the sports populace has been talking about nonstop for 4 years, I don't feel like a lot of people dislike him. Like, I don't feel like there's been a backlash to him, though. I mean, like with the baseball thing and the Heisman and all this stuff, I feel like people just like really like Kyler Murray, and
in a way, but it's like it almost shouldn't be happening. Like you feel like they should dislike him, and they don't. By the way, that Super Bowl run, not to I mean, just again, how old Fitzgerald is. I mean, that was 2000 and January 2009. I remember I was at that Panthers Cardinals game that the Cardinals won.
The Delholm MVP for the Cardinals season.
Yes, I distinctly remember writing in my recap for Fan House that it was like Delhomme was the valet intercepted him on the way. Like he was like throwing his keys to like the car guy and threw a pick there. That's how bad it was.
Yes.
Also bad writing in 2008 or 2009, but 566 yards, 9 touchdowns in 4 games 4 playoff games in Larry Fitzgerald's first playoff run. I mean, one of the epic all-time playoff runs.
And if the Steelers don't have that last drive,
and a 99-yard interception return by James Harrison. I mean,
yeah, but I think that touchdown that Fitzgerald scored the Super Bowl is an all-time Super Bowl play. Like just
and
absolutely
it's Holmes and Roethlisberger by the
just all time. Like it's to me to watch that play. It's funny. My having grown up in St. Louis, I had actually physically never been to the state of Arizona until that playoff game against the Falcons. That year, I'd physically never been there. It was amazing. I felt like I'm like my people. I never even met.
I am here.
I've never even met a Cardinals fan before. This is amazing. and so I was at the Eagles game as well. I didn't go to the Super Bowl, but I was at the Eagles NFC Championship game as well. And this is another thing that I think is underappreciated, and we'll see what the effect it would have this year. But that place gets loud like that. Like the Cardinals have like a quiet, great home field advantage. So I think, particularly when the roof is closed,
it's also a great spot to just watch. Because Super Bowl 49 was there with the Seahawks and the Patriots, and one of my favorite Super Bowl ever, my favorite football game ever. But like, it's just a good place to watch it. It feels like
it's a great stadium. It is a really
very nice and like,
And again, I don't know if there's going to be any fans to watch the games this year, but certainly that's something that has helped them a lot. So yeah, it is. You know, for me, the frustrating thing about, the Arians time is that year that they made the NFC Championship game, it fell short. The next year was the year I thought was really going to be their year. But remember, they had that weird game that went into the late overtime and the tie and the Seahawks game, and everything just kind of went sideways that year. And they hadn't got it back. And it always felt like, even with Arians, it felt like they were still just cobbling.
The 6-6 Sunday night tie, where like nobody wanted to. Oh my God, yeah,
just derail. And the whole season was just the special teams was terrible. Everything like that was a really really good Cardinals team that just could not get it together.
It's like that. It's like that game against Carolina in the championship game. Just sort of. Like didn't break him. It just you knew that they watched the Super Bowl and saw how Carolina lost to Denver, and they're like, man, we could have beaten that team.
I know, and remember too, that was also the same year that Rodgers had the Hail Mary against them
that's right
in the division before. They probably should have lost that game. So that but the point is that like as much as I like Arians and I think he's a smart guy, it always felt a little bit like actually the Buccaneers now that like, hey, let's bring in our vets. And we're cobbling the plane together while it's in the air.
It's and it's like this is not going to be a long run.
Exactly.
And
it felt like that. And it felt like that. Yeah. And it felt like that in Arizona too. Like even when Arians there, and he was obviously very appreciated. Cardinals are usually very bad, and he made them very good for a couple of years. But it never felt like, wow, I think the Cardinals might be really good for like the next 10 years. And it feels that way because they've got Murray. Like honestly, just having Murray, it just feels like somewhat to have that anchor, like it just justifies every decision they've made. Bringing in Kingsbury, going ahead and drafting two quarterbacks in 2 straight years. The whole idea was like, if you think Murray is that transformative quarterback, you have to do it. And I got to tell you, a year in, I think he might be that transformative quarterback.
And to top it off, like the guy they passed on, Nick Bosa, had a borderline defensive player of the year season, and nobody.
Yeah, exactly. No one's like, oh, well, don't they? Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And it is, and I feel like he's just scratching the surface. And he seems, and for the record, Murray says the same thing. He actually does not think he was very good last year. He had an interception late in, I think, in the Seahawks game, the Rams. It was an interception late in the Rams game at the end of the year that he's like been kicking himself all summer about. It just feels like a dude that's gonna do great things, and it's very exciting that he's on my team.
That is what you want. And I think they were like 2-5-1 in 1-score games too. So there's definitely some upside there. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk defense. So the Cardinals, I think people were a little nervous that the Cardinals took Isaiah Simmons in the first round because a few years ago, 2017, the Cardinals took Hassan Reddick. And they probably would have taken Patrick Mahomes if he had fallen one more spot, which, now that you have Kyler Murray, is a lot easier to stomach. They love, I think they liked Watson. I know they love Mahomes. But I think people are worried about Isaiah Simmons because of Hassan Reddick. And I think that's unfair. Do you agree?
Yeah. And, the only thing that worries me about Simmons is, I mean, he's obviously great, but like, the they were so bad at covering the tight end last year. Like that was the thing that just destroyed them consistently. Like their defense was not great anyway, but the tight end just destroyed them consistently all season. And like it felt like Tecmo Bowl, where it's just like, wow, you can just throw it to Cap Bozo every play and it'll be fine. And so it was very, very frustrating. Simmons feels like, in addition to all the other things that Simmons can do, it feels like a direct answer to that. Is like that's where like that to me is what they'd like to. I think that's why they're going to let him. Like they're not going to force him into a spot. I think they're going to let him roam a little bit. And I think a lot of it is to stop that tight end play. So I think because that got them a lot. Remember last year too. Remember Peterson was out for the first 6 games last year, and it took him like another 4 or 5 games. By the end of the year, he had it going again. But for the first 2/3 of the year, he was either not there or not himself, and you saw all the problems that put around in the secondary. So that was an issue too. I also think, though, that this is another, again, talking about kind of Kingsbury's evolution on this. This is the plan for the defense is not, that's all right, it's going to be like college. We're going to score so many points that it's not even going to matter. That's clearly, they not to say that was entirely their strategy last year, but they have addressed it a lot in the offseason in a way that looks, frankly, like the way a grown-up would handle the situation, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, so they draft Simmons. Chandler Jones is obviously there. He's maybe, I don't want to say the most underrated defender, but I mean, he just didn't get the love for a guy who puts up 15-plus sacks every year. I think the interesting thing, and they had Devondre Campbell, Jordan Hicks. To me, what's interesting is that, and they actually get Jordan Phillips and Corey Peters on the inside too. So that's like a kind staple to go out and get these veterans that are, sort of mid-level and have played really well, but you don't know if they're going to be great. And then they tend to break out. He's had success doing that. The 2 guys that to me that can really make this a huge transformation forward, Zach Allen and Byron Murphy, who were the third and second round picks respectively in 2019. I don't know if they're going to be great. And, it's a crapshoot in the NFL when you talk about these draft picks, especially after the first round. But like, if those guys can take a step forward, this defense actually looks like it can be pretty good.
There's certainly a lot of talent, right? Like, for all, and again, this is another example of how last year felt like a little bit of the training wheels here for Kingsbury, for Murray, and really for the defense. Like they were figuring stuff out, and they were they kind of shifted on the fly a little bit. There are guys now how it's all going to work, we'll see. But certainly there are like, across the board, everything just looks like it's taken a little bit of a step up. Not a dramatic step up. I would not say that this is one of the best defenses in football, but I think there's enough there, and I think there's enough room for them to step forward in a way that, again, you don't have to go that far, right? Like this doesn't have to be a top 5 defense, but if it's a top half defense,
top 15 defense, and all of a sudden you're kind of cooking with gas.
Exactly. And I think that's the play. And I think there's upside that could be more than that. But if they're a top half defense, I think this is, even in a really tough division, which we may get into, I think this is a playoff team if they just get a moderate step forward from defense.
Yeah, well, that was going to be the follow-up, is because, I mean, we don't need to dive into Vance Joseph's X's and O's, but we can if you're like, I don't need to. I'm fine without it. I mean, I think it's a good defense that is going to, can be manipulated a little bit more maybe than it was last year, especially with the presence of Simmons, who can rush off the edge, who can drop into coverage. I mean, like he covered running backs out of the backfield in college. He's a crazy dynamic player. But to me, if they can't take a step forward, and you have to assume that they will, given the additions, or that they have the upside to it. Is this the toughest division of football, and where do the Cardinals slot in?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? This is always the thing with the NFC West, right? It's either the best division of football or the worst division in football, and like it's
the middle ground.
Yeah, it's kind of consistently that, and I feel like this team is so the heavy favorite to win the 2008 NFC West. Like this team would wipe out the 2008 NFC West, but now, yeah, it is certainly a challenge. But I mean, that to me, that's one of the reasons that I felt like Keim felt like he had to swing big with Kingsbury in the first place, right? Yeah. Like this was not something where you were gonna incrementally catch up with those guys. Like you either had to swing big, particularly, and for a guy whose frankly his job was probably in a little bit of trouble, it was probably the prudent thing to do was to take the big swing. And to me, the thing that's exciting about the Cardinals, listen, it's nice having Hopkins. You want to see Fitz do better, but like this is, again, it all comes back to the fact that they have Murray. When you have Murray, what you want to like, I think this could be a playoff. I think this could be a playoff team this year. However, what you really want is to see Murray take the next step, because now hopefully the season works out great. And even if but as long as they improve, you still have Murray for a while now. And listen, I understand that like Murray is cheaper than he'll be later. You've got more room to be able to do stuff money wise when he's on the rookie contract. But like this is you want forward movement. You want up. And are they better than the 49ers? No, I don't think they are better than the 49ers. But if the Rams take I can see the Rams, they're a little in a middle area. The Seahawks really kind of like they always kind of surprise you a little bit, but it does feel if one or two of those teams take a step back, the Cardinals are positioned to pass them. But is it possible they go 9-7? Is it possible they are a lot better than last year, but go 7-9? I think that's possible.
So, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, there are exactly 5 players who have lower MVP odds than Kyler Murray at this point. He's down to 15-1. That is, I think that there is probably some concern in the Cardinals front office and the Cardinals organization. It's like, hey, look, we are going in the right direction. And I think they all feel the same way you do. Like we have solved the answer at quarterback, but they're like, we're not the 2020 Browns from 2019, are we? Like we traded for like this wide receiver. Right. We have this Oklahoma quarterback in his second year. Everybody is hyping us up. He's getting great Super MVP odds. I mean, I think that might be a little bit of concern. They're even with the Rams at 6-1 to win the division, which is kind of crazy. The 49ers are -125, Seahawks +350. I would pick, I'll probably do something stupid and pick the Cardinals to win the division. I think it's very possible.
You picked them to win the Super Bowl a year late, a couple of years ago. If memory serves.
I picked them. Yeah, the 7-8-1 year. So that's my bad. Might be on that. That was actually Bruce Arians. That was me.
So please don't pick that. Please don't pick that.
You're right. I know. I was gonna.
But I will say
want to pick the Cardinals, but I don't want to ruin the Cardinals because
I will also say one advantage that I think the Cardinals have over the Browns is the Browns clearly had obvious dysfunction that was going on in a lot of ways.
Coach.
Yeah, but also the Cardinals, like they have the same system and the same people in charge of it that they did last year. I'll put it this way: if the offense does not keep humming, either someone's gotten hurt, or then everything we think we know about all of this about the people in charge of this.
Well, but that's the thing that went under. So and you're 100% correct. Like because we had Mary Kay Cabot on this podcast before last season. She's like, I was like, so what's the deal? They're running the same offense they ran last year to make Baker happy. She's like, actually, they're installing an entirely new offense that's going to blend the air raid the Oklahoma system along with a bunch of Freddie Kitchens' preferred plays. It's like, well, that seems stupid. Like, you really going to do that in the first year? Okay, go for it. And Baker took a huge step back, and Freddie Kitchens was terrible. Kliff Kingsbury should not, like, there's no reason why Kliff Kingsbury should suddenly just be worse than he was last year. There's consistency there. And I think consistency is huge in this off season where we don't know if there's going to be training camp and we don't know if there are going to be any preseason games. Like you need to have all these things in place that were already in place. And it helps that I think it's a simplified system for Kyler that he's going to deal with in that air raid too. Like he's not mastering. It's like Dak Prescott having to learn Mike McCarthy's system. It's a totally different scenario.
I mean, there's a reason Todd Monken is here in Athens now, and not in Cleveland anymore, right? And so, like, that was but nobody blames him, right? Like, it was just this mess and all of this stuff. Maybe some people blame it, but I don't think he's seen as the main culprit in all of that. And that's all right. This is like there is the main things that the offense has to do is get the new offensive, figure out the offensive line, which again, there are pieces there. They are they're all on the same page, and get Hopkins worked in the offense, which I don't think anyone is sweating too much. So other than that, you've got everything locked into place and set up to the point where an offense that was already pretty good last year should be able considerably improve. I get it. Like, it doesn't. I understand that in a superficial insert Hopkins for Beckham and insert Murray for Mayfield.
You can make the comparisons, but I don't.
But I don't think the husk of the argument is actually. They feel very different situations.
I'm with you on that. All right, you sort of touched on it, but we'll get you out of here on this. What is a good season for the what's the floor? What's the ceiling? What is a successful season for the Arizona Cardinals? Because I think they probably fall in like a poor. No, not the Bills, but they sort of fall in the same vein as like maybe. I'm trying to think of an example here, but it's like if maybe I don't want to say the Bengals either. There's not really a great slot to put them in, but like if Kyler has a great season and they go 7-9, that's not a bad year, right?
I don't think so. Though I think that will lead if he takes a big step forward and they go 7-9. I'm going to go under the assumption that the defense did not. It's like something went wrong. With the defense, and they're going to have to work on that. If Murray takes the big step forward, even in that tough division, I think the ceiling. The ceiling. I think they could win the division. I would not like. I do. I think they could. I think that's the ceiling. The floor is, assuming that Murray doesn't get hurt. That obviously changes the whole thing. Though, for what it's worth, I know I'm sure you're very excited to talk about this topic, but boy, I think Colin Kaepernick makes a lot of sense if Murray gets hurt on this team. I think that's like a totally logical thing.
Well, and the economic or the political climate in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. That's a whole. Should we talk about that? Let's talk about that for a while.
Some of that. Yeah, let's deep dive into what do you think, Debo?
Hey, listen. Arizona's turning blue, baby. So we'll see. Anyway, point is that if Murray gets hurt, and also the fact that like who knows what this NFL season is going to look like, that like all the break glass in case of emergency craziness that could happen, we allot for all that. But if he stays healthy and takes the step forward that you expect, I think the floor is 7-9 because the defense has collapsed. But if the defense takes a step forward, I think this is above 500 team at the minimum.
I agree with you. And I think I love the over for the Cardinals this year. I think it's climbed up a little bit. I think this is one of those teams too, where you have to, the expectations is what almost concerns me more than anything, is that people, if the hype does get to the point where people are like, hey, the Cardinals need to go, like worst case, it's not always exponential growth in the NFL because it's random and it's lucky and all of that. But I think like if they win less than 7 games, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, and boy, that's a nice place to be honest. And that's the thing too. And again, this is why I emphasized before, this is just the start for Murray. Right. Like the point is even like 7 would be a 2.5. I guess I gave it a half improvement because they were 5-10-1.
Thank you, Matt Patricia.
Yes, yes. But if they go 7. And then the problem with 7, the only real problem with 7 is by next year, by 2021, you'd like to see this be the favorite or one of the real obvious favorites in the division. You'd like to see Murray be the MVP, the top MVP guy. You'd like to see that, like by year 3, you kind of feel like they should be fully weaponized at that point. And they've got
their schedule is, I mean, they start at San Francisco, which is not ideal, but they played San Francisco really well last year in that defense. Robert Saleh's defense struggles against Russ and Kyler for whatever reason. They get the Redskins at home, Lions at home, at Panthers, at Jets. If they come out ready in year 2, like I almost think like a hot start is kind of paramount for this team because you don't want the negativity to roll up, Yeah,
and this is a team that's still. I mean, what they start like 3-9-1 last year.
We were questioning Kliff Kingsbury's credentials.
Yeah,
and 5 when they beat the Bengals.
And it's all been, and really, honestly, the thing that really got people excited about was winning at Seattle. That win at Seattle late was very exciting, and then they almost beat the Rams. So but more to the point, even when they were in the middle of that losing streak, other than that really ugly Rams game, you saw that you could see them getting better, and you could see Murray getting better, and you could see, and then Drake started to work in the offense. You get the difference between the team, the beginning of the season, at the end of the season. I mean, that's what makes narratives, right? It's the difference between the way you look at the start, the way you look at the end. They just look so dramatically different, and Murray looked dramatically different in a way that I think there's quite reason to be excited. And I think more to the point, they could have the season they had last year with their defense as bad as it was. Like, as bad as that defense was, there was still a lot of room for hope. And so when you have something that is low as that is, and all you got to do is just raise that a little, and then you add Hopkins, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited.
I agree. This is going to be my adopted team. Well, no, I take that back. The Colts are my adopted team for 2020. But if I had to pick if my dream Super Bowl as what I would love to pick and have see happen, but I probably won't because I'm a wuss, and then it actually will happen, would be Colts versus Cardinals. And I know that's not the sexy action that my bosses at CBS want down in Tampa, but I don't care. That's what I want to see.
I would find it quite saucy.
Yeah, I won't pick that for the good of Cardinals fans.
Yeah, we've had enough trouble. You have caused us a lot of problems.
I am on a heater when it comes to ruining team seasons with Super Bowl picks. Well, like an absolute, like I had the Falcons last year, they completely fell. Or 2 years ago, no, they had the Vikings last year, so they were actually pretty good. But
well, I want you to pick the Rams, Seahawks, and
Rams Seahawks. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll pick the Rams to win the NFC West. There you go. Okay, Will Leitch, great friend of the program. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. Also a listener, long time listener. So thank you for your support. You can you pre-order your book?
Not yet. I have a book coming out next, assuming there is, in fact, next summer.
What's the deal on the book?
It's a novel. I sold a novel. It has nothing to do with sports. Very off-brand.
It's called Lucky, right?
It's called Lucky. Yes, it takes place here in Athens, Georgia. So I just sold it. I've always wanted. It's always been a life goal of mine to sell a novel during a pandemic and period of unprecedented social change. So I just timed it perfectly. But so it's being published by HarperCollins next June, and I still write for New York Magazine. I write for New York Magazine every week, and I write for MLB.com, and I have a piece in the New York Times about the Segway that I think went up during this podcast. So read my piece about the death of the Segway in the New York Times.
And you should, if you have not, go check out Will's Twitter feed at William F. Leitch, and you can see, you're writing about because you can't write about what's happening on the baseball field right now because nothing's happening. But you've been doing like look backs, like Vince Coleman. You wrote about it.
And I wrote about like certain years, like 1981, for example.
Better Than You Remember series. One that we were talking about.
Vince Coleman with Gary Gaetti is coming out next week, and Terry Pendleton. Terry Pendleton.
That's the one. Yes, man, I love Terry Pendleton. When are you going to profile Mark Lemke?
I'm on it. Well, there's about to be, hopefully, actual baseball games. True. So I'm crossing my fingers that I'll actually have certain baseball things to actually write about, though. We got a month to go before we find out about that.
Yeah, well, knock on wood. We need baseball. We really need football. I personally need football. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. This is fun.
Of course. My pleasure. Be safe, man.